Hello and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It is the 20th of October. Where has time gone since we were last able to get together and have our half an hour where we delve back into the wonders of the ancient world in order to, frankly, quite often, save ourselves from the muddled perils of the modern. And here in the UK on the 20th of October, we couldn't be in more muddled perils, if you like, particularly in relation to our politics of the last days and of the last hours. So I invite you in the midst of all this change to take half an hour and join with me in a bit of an enjoyable adventure into the ancient world, as always. And that is, of course, as always, thanks to your fantastic questions that you have been sending in over the last couple of weeks, and we now get a chance to delve into and answer. But first off, we have to pay tribute, I think. In our last Q&A, we were talking about Hadrian's Wall. And of course, it's a big year for Hadrian's Wall this year. It's the 1900th anniversary of Hadrian's Wall. And there are lots of things going on along the whole length of Hadrian's Wall celebrating that fantastic anniversary. But one of the viewers of this Q&A last time pointed out that they had actually had their honeymoon at Hadrian's Wall. And we asked, as part of that conversation, what they did as part of their honeymoon. Were they exploring a particular site? Were they walking around? What were they doing? Elisa Benson has kind of come back and told us a little bit more about their honeymoon. They walked it from end to end, east to west, Wall's End to Brow in 5 days. And they did it by using the good old-fashioned trick of booking into B&Bs along the route, and then there's services that will take your luggage from B&B to B&B, so all you have to walk with for the day is what you need for that day itself. And they had an absolutely fantastic honeymoon that was, you will be pleased to hear, followed up by a couple of days of spa treatment to recover from all that serious walking. Hello, everyone. Hello, Alexis. Hello, Anna. Hello, Phil. Hello, Maureen. Hello. Welcome. So, Elisa, and I've been told very specifically that this is not, Elisa is the name. I hope I am pronouncing it correctly. Elisa Benton, congratulations on a fabulous honeymoon. What an amazing idea. What a plan. I would love to hear any more stories from those of you who have been to Hadrian's Wall in this particular year, in the 1900th anniversary year of Hadrian's Wall, and what you have been enjoying most about the site. Anna says her friends did that also for their honeymoon. Was it Anna? It wasn't Elisa, was it, by any chance? Or are there more people who are doing their honeymoon walking Hadrian's Wall? Perhaps it is a honeymoon spectacular that I was unaware of as such a popular honeymoon choice. Now, some of you have been following on the Facebook page that I've just got back from Rome. My wife and I, Cassie and I, were in Rome for 4 glorious days where the temperatures were 26 degrees and more. It was absolutely astonishing. And we were sort of out back in summer clothing, having left the cold and the wet and the wind of the UK behind us. And we, of course, ate a lot of extremely good pasta and extremely good pizza. Hello, James Dice on the train, listening on the train. Excellent. I hope everyone in the carriage can join in the listening as well. I'm sure they'll all appreciate it and they won't find it annoying at all. Lots of pizza, lots of pasta, and lots of good walking around and seeing all the amazing sights. Although some of you may have picked up on my slight frustration that the site I really wanted to get into, the Mausoleum of Augustus, which had been opened with such fanfare back earlier in the summer, to now be able to be visitable after years of being closed off, is now closed again because they are doing up all the surrounding area to the Mausoleum of Augustus and relaying it to be a much more welcoming and inviting public sort of site. Now, I completely think that this is a brilliant idea, and clearly from the renovation work that's going on, it's going to be absolutely beautiful when it's finished. But one might have asked the question whether or not it was possible to time in the works around the Mausoleum of Augustus with the works inside the Mausoleum of Augustus, so that both of them could have been opened at the same time, rather than opening one and then closing it again because of the other. But that is, of course, La Dolce Vita, the Roman way, and in some cases, and we must love it and embrace it for everything that it's worth. So we will, as Alexis says, all the more reason to go back again. Absolutely, indeed, we will be back. Ciao to everyone. Hello to William in Alaska. Hello, Tracy. Hello, Marietta. Hello, Jeanette. So good that you are all here. Thank you so much indeed for taking your time. So, Carolyn Nicklin has been in touch with our first question. She's lost her voice. Oh dear, Carolyn, we hope that you found it again and that you are on your road to recovery, but you lost your voice. Were there any suggestions from the great orators of the classical period as to what you can do to get it back? But Carolyn does reserve the right not to try anything that harms a frog, etc. Carolyn, how did you know that I was going to come up with such a slightly bizarre, ancient kind of remedy for the sore throat involving a frog? No, there are no frogs that need to be involved or indeed harmed in the telling of this story. You will be pleased to know, indeed. But for a sore throat or indeed a lost voice, the ancients dating back to the era of Theophrastus, who is one of my favourite characters from the ancient world, writing in the 4th century BCE. And he's the guy who's both a massive philosopher, really hardcore philosophy, takes over the headship of one of the philosophical schools in Athens, but he's also a bit of a botanist, and he writes a whole series of works and treatises on plants, and he's also a studier of human nature, and he writes a whole series of caricatures of different human characters. Now, you might not be surprised that the sore voice connection comes in relation to his work on plants, because it's in Theophrastus' work on plants that we get our first mention of the Scythian root, as it is known in Theophrastus' time, and which is licorice. So licorice, from the time of the ancient Greeks and then definitively through the time of the Romans, was the preferred no harm done to any animals, toads, frogs, or anything else that you lot are chatting about in the comments, was the preferred means for the Romans to deal with a sore throat. Get your licorice out and get eating on your licorice, chewing on your licorice, swallow everything, as much licorice as you can handle, go for it. And that will, according to people like Theophrastus in the Greek world, and then Pliny, particularly in the Roman world, will absolutely sort you out. So, Carolyn, if your voice is still a little hoarse and you don't have a frog or a toad to hand, then do try a little bit of licorice and see what the results are. If any of you do actually try any of these great ancient remedies, medical cures, a number of which we've talked about over the previous weeks, do, of course, let us know how they've worked out. But do remember that we disclaim any responsibility for what might happen as a result of trying them. Ricardo, we're moving on to think about Greek religion. Ricardo Bardales Villacorta, again, I apologise profusely if I've not pronounced your name correctly, asks a little bit to understand a little bit more about Greek religion and thinking particularly about the mysteries at Eulises. Ricardo, some of my favourite things. Now, Greek religion, absolutely difficult to wrap our heads around that there was no word for religion in ancient Greek. And yet, of course, religion was such a crucial part of the ancient Greek world, perhaps so crucial that they didn't feel they needed to have a separate word for it. Alexis, thank you for your quotes on licorice, also good for speeding things up. Well, yes, absolutely. And if you read some Pliny about what licorice can do for you, frankly, as far as Pliny's concerned, there's nothing that licorice can't do for you. So have a good read. And get involved with your licorice. Sarah, thank you for the story about your cat licking a toad. We'll leave that one to the comments. Nassim is asking, why are the fairy lights off? I know electric bills are super high now. That's it, Nassim. I can't afford the electricity to be able to broadcast live and put on my fairy lights at the same time. No, it's because I'm resisting the temptation that winter has arrived and at 5 o'clock in the afternoon we need to have the lights on. So I'm going with daylight. But don't worry, in the next couple of weeks as we get into full winter and then Christmas spirit, the fairy lights will reappear. We need solar fairy lights, says Sarah. Absolutely. Work well in Italy, work beautifully in Italy. Might not work quite so well in dark England. But Ricardo, you're talking about Greek religion. No word for religion in ancient Greek at all, and yet it's omnipresent in everything there was. And in fact, it's an even more bizarre religious experience compared to many modern religions, because ancient Greek religion had no core text of the stories of that religion. There's no equivalent of the Bible, right? No, the Torah or the Quran. There was no key statement of belief. There was no equivalent of the Christian Nicene Creed. I am a Christian if I believe in these things. So it was a much more flexible, if you like, and in some ways ambiguous set of relationships between humans and the divine, and with that kind of middle level, that in-between level of the heroes. And demigods, etc., etc., told through a continually evolving set of mythical stories, but equally practiced through a series of strong and very important and quite, in fact, well-regulated sets of relationships in the ways in which humans could interact with the divine. So I'm thinking particularly about prayers, obviously. Definitely the Greeks had prayers and invocations, but you could also try and bribe your gods to be on your side and to be well-disposed towards you. You could do that through dedicating something to them within a sanctuary or sacrificing something to them. And there were very specific rules about what you sacrificed to which god in which sanctuary and what kind of dedications in particular places particular gods liked. As well as, of course, taking part in festivals that was celebrations of the gods and of their particular powers. Thinking in the Greek world of the Dionysia, which was often a celebration of Dionysus, but which also included watching theatre, or indeed lots of athletic competitions could be done in honour of the gods as part of great religious festivals at sanctuaries. And some of those festivals were for smaller specific groups of people. So some festivals only for women, like the Thesmophoria, for instance, and others for only for people from particular cities. So thinking of some of the Athenian rituals for Athenians only. But then some of them were kind of pan-Greek, if you like, pan-Hellenic, and the more the merrier could get involved. And that's kind of where Eulises fits in, because Eulises is a sanctuary dedicated to the goddess Demeter and her daughter Persephone. And at Eulises, you had to have been initiated into the Eleusinian rites to be a full participant in the rituals that went on at Eulises. So this was not a place open to all. You had to be sort of initiated in, and you had to be invited to be an initiate in the first place. And then initiation happened over a series of different religious rituals that you couldn't do all at once. So you were sort of half initiated person after the first bit. Then you came back the next year to become a full initiate. And then you would come back in future years as a guide to new initiates on different stages of their journey. And this is symbolized and reflected in the architecture of the sanctuary at Eulises, which has very, very high walls all around the sanctuary from the 6th century BC, from very early on in its history, which is pretty rare, actually, compared to most Greek sanctuaries, where sometimes you weren't even sure when you'd crossed into the sanctuary. There was no official marked boundary at all. So to have big, high walls around the sanctuary, closing it off from outsiders' view, so that those inside who had been initiated, who were allowed to be there as part of the mysteries, really were getting a very special experience. And part of course, worshipping Demeter and Persephone and Hades as a result, as part of Persephone's story of going down to Hades, it was all about being initiated into a certain set of truths, things shown, things said, and things kind of done, which gave you a new insight into the afterlife and what happened next, and a kind of a deeper level of knowledge and understanding and of satisfaction. And the ancient sources talk about it in terms of kind of being a revelation, which brought about a sense of peace and certainty. So kind of that's a little bit how Eulises fits into that bigger picture of Greek religion. Alexis asks, did people worship a god popular in their particular region or the one they had a connection with? Hey, Alexis, great question. Mix of both. So certain cities had certain gods that were really important. Athens obviously had Athena, who was the patron deity of the city. Pretty important. But at the same time, there would be lots of little mini sanctuaries spread across Athens to different gods with different particular epithets attached to them, i.e. different aspects of that god or goddess that would be worshipped at that particular place. And then, of course, you had the gods of your own home, and you had your own particular family gods that you were particularly interested in worshipping, or it might be a particular thing you needed to do, and as a result, you needed a particular god on your side. So So lots and lots and lots of possibility, and also, of course, possibility for expansion. So we see in the Piraeus, the port of ancient Athens, by the 4th century BCE, there is a religious sanctuary in the port of ancient Athens for gods from Egypt, because you've got lots of traders coming in from Egypt to the port of Athens, and while they're there, they need a place to worship the gods that they worship. And so you start to see this increasing kind of cosmopolitan divine mix, if you like, around the Mediterranean world. And that's where Delos is such a fascinating place, because it has that absolute cosmopolitan mix of Delos as a religious sanctuary, originally dedicated to Apollo and Artemis, with a few other Greek gods thrown in, but it also becoming a place of a trading emporium, bringing people to it from across the entire Mediterranean world, and thus also all of the gods came with them and got given little spaces around the island. So on Delos we see spaces for Syrian divinities, Egyptian divinities, those from Asia, as well as Italian, kind of Roman kind of gods that they preferred as well. So quite an extraordinary group. Marietta is asking, what if one did not believe in gods during that time? A really equally good question. We think that atheism, theos from the Greek, not God, kind of not believing in the gods, actually isn't really something that becomes a kind of recognizable concept until you're getting into the mid 5th century BC and onwards into the 4th century, by which time people are talking about it as a sort of option, or at least kind of being much more specific about what you worship, and indeed taking up particular creeds that required you to remove yourself from normal everyday life. So the Pythagoreans, for instance, were a sort of cult, if you like, that sort of demanded you didn't eat meat, for instance, so you couldn't do the normal kind of worshipping and sacrificing to the gods. Or there was the cult of Orpheus, like kind of the Orphics as well, that had a whole different systems of beliefs, and indeed within that mix, people increasingly who kind of insisted that there might not be divinities, but they were always kind of within the minority. Greetings, Laura from Mexico. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in, everyone. So, Ricardo, thank you so much for your absolutely brilliant question. We've got time for one more before we have to delve off into our kind of quick whip around of what's been going on in the ancient world. But, Ash, it's our 40th birthday today. You've stopped the celebrations to listen to you. Well, bless you. Happy 40th. That is a fantastic moment. I hope you, having recently celebrated a 40th birthday myself, I hope you are feeling on top of the world and like life is only really just getting going, and that you only have just begun to understand kind of quite how to kind of do life properly. Congratulations. I think a chorus of happy birthday for you from us all. And don't forget, the Romans did celebrate birthdays as well. They had good birthday celebrations with, some occasional sorts of cakes and things like that. So kind of do make sure you are celebrating in proper ancient style. And of course, as the Greeks would have it, get wine, involve wine, have wine, make that part of the 40th celebrations. Congratulations to you. Becky Timon has asked a question from her student, Holly. Were there any financial crashes in the ancient world? Holly, I wonder what has been putting you in the mind of financial crashes recently. I can't imagine what it might have been. But you're asking, as gold and silver coins are worth their weight in the ancient world, unlike today, could financial crashes happen? Did they have inflation? Oh, Holly, I'm sorry. Yes. Financial crashes did happen. In fact, some are arguing that financial crashes are pretty much innately part of evolved, complex human societies, as so many other things are, even though we wish they weren't. And those financial crashes happened in the ancient world, irrespective of the debasement of coinage. So firstly, I have to tell you, sadly, the Romans did debase their coinage quite dramatically, in fact. So if you look at a graph of the content of silver and silver coins from, say, the start of the Roman imperial period, when they were kind of up there at sort of in the 90% silver, by the time you get through to about the 290s, it's down to 0% silver. And so in silver coins, or coins worth the same amount of money. So kind of there was massive debasement actually in the materials they were making of these coins, and Roman emperors were doing this because actually, well, the Roman model was, as you expand, you conquer and you get new stuff because you've conquered. Brilliant. That feeds gives you the income you need to continue the expenditure of running the empire that you have conquered. But when the Roman Empire gets to its greatest extent, it stops getting that big inroads of income, of cash from new conquest, but it's left with all the outgoings of how to maintain the empire that it's running. And then the empire struggles with that question of how to raise the money to actually run the empire if you're not going to do it by kind of just continually expanding the empire. One way of doing that was taxation, never a particularly popular model in the Roman world. So one of the ways in which they responded to that was just by making more money and effectively, as a result, devaluing the coinage and then, of course, reducing the amount of actual silver and gold, etc., in the coinage, which led to a series of financial crises, particularly in the 3rd century. AD. We talk about the 3rd century crisis, in fact, which kind of really gets to a head by the end of the 3rd century when those poor old silver coins got 0% silver in them, the 290s, and then leads to a whole series of recalculations and re-establishments and actually kind of much greater involvement and interference in the market, as we would term it today. So in 301, at the very beginning of the 4th century, the Emperor Diocletian is actually producing edicts on maximum prices that you can charge for things to try and keep a handle on things like what we would call inflation today, but which wasn't really recognised to a certain extent by the Romans, but basically regulating the economy of kind of as much as they could. But even prior to all those coin debasements, people talk about financial crashes, scarily like that of 2008, kind of linked to land and property. And in fact, in 33 CE, kind of Augustus, first emperor, brilliant reputation. He gave out land like crazy to all of his followers and particularly to his soldiers, and he spent like crazy at the early part of his empire as Rome tried to reunite itself, bring itself out of that period of civil war. Very successful. But then he tried to sort of put the brakes on towards the end of his life, and then his successors really had a bit of an issue about how to kind of start balancing the books. And one of the things they suddenly turned around and did in around 33, which wasn't particularly brilliant, was insist by law on people investing a certain amount of their income and of their wealth in land, which led to basically a complete kind of financial crisis based on property values spiking and then degrading when that law was revoked. So you are left with a whole series of financial crises from the ancient world, some of which the drivers and levers for are scarily similar to what have happened in the modern world, which brings you back to the point, as ever, that we keep coming back to, that sadly the only thing we learn from history is so often that we don't learn from history. But Becky, thank you, and indeed to your student Holly, thank you so much indeed for your question. Right, we've got to take a quick break from questions, but we are coming back to some more to say a few words about the amazing stuff that's been going on around the world about the ancient world. Newcastle University has been getting out and joining up with the Vindolanda Trust, based around Hadrian's Wall, to make sure that kind of visitors can be connected in using the best technology available to historical sites and objects. And they've developed a video game, The Missing Dead, opening up the past to young people, encouraging them to engage with history through a different learning environment. That sounds absolutely brilliant. On the other hand, in Bridlington, they've made a Trojan horse entirely out of cardboard. Yes, the giant biodegradable, very important sculpture, will tower over the heads of visitors to Bridlington Spa in October. The build would use 0.6 miles of cardboard and would weigh 42 stones. So if you're anywhere near Bridlington, please go and take a picture of this giant Trojan horse and send it to us. We'd love to see it. Absolutely brilliant. What we've also got along English heritage are getting out of Hadrian's Wall the souvenirs that you might a group of the oldest known examples of Hadrian Wall souvenirs. So it's not just about the ancient world, but it's about how we've commemorated the ancient world over time, which I think is absolutely genius. You can have a jar of toffee apple curd. No, honestly, no, that's just an example of what some people create as souvenirs. Roman remains are believed to be beneath the Lidl on the Old Kent Road. So if you shop in the Lidl on the Old Kent Road in the UK, there are Romans beneath you, I tell you. The underwater Roman remains have been discovered off the Ponza coast in Italy. So kind of Ponza was a Roman port, obviously, in colony, and now that they've actually found some of the remains that have gone into the sea as a result, and they are starting to investigate those, which is brilliant. The Circus Maximus, if you can't get to Rome, then Rome can now come to you through the joys of virtual reality. The Circo Maximo experience in 3D allows you to enjoy and get involved, even if you can't get there in any shape or form yourself. And tons more of stuff we've been posting on the Facebook page, obviously. But another favourite of mine, there's going to be a furniture show at the ancient Roman city of Herculaneum. Of course, Herculaneum and Pompeii brilliantly preserving extraordinarily even wooden furniture and knickknacks. And this is going to be the world's most unusual furniture show with a lineup of 2,000-year-old beds, stools, and tables. This are kind of nothing to take home, so don't think that you can go and buy anything or take it away with you. But, you know, if you are inspired to have something copied for you in modern wood, that sounds like a kind of absolutely brilliant. William is asking about the infinity symbol on my wrist. You've noticed this. This is a little bracelet I've been wearing since my daughter was born in 2016 and is a little symbol of the infinity of love. There we go. And kind of we wear them all between my wife and myself and my daughter as well. Kind of we enjoy. So the Classical Association 2023 can't even say the word now. The 2023 photography competition. Do get involved in this. Are you a keen photographer? Do you like thinking deeply about why we do what we do, why we are who we are? Please submit photographs you've taken in response to the following themes: shadows in the cave, living well, being wrong, or democracy. You can interpret them how you like, but get those photos in. The deadline is 4th of January 2023. And what else is there out there that we can get involved in? Classics for All North has a Classics and Ancient History Teacher Day on the 16th of November. Unlocking Ancient Egypt is going to be a new exhibition about the decipherment of hieroglyphics thanks to the Rosetta Stone at the British Museum that's running from now until the 19th of February. And this ties in very nicely because I am in the final throes of finishing my new book. X Marks the Spot will be the title. You heard it here first, which will be coming out in May next year, May 2023. You'll be hearing more about that for sure in the coming months. But as I feverishly finish off the chapters, one of which is about the story of the discovery of the Rosetta Stone and the world, the geopolitical context in which it was discovered, the main players leading to its discovery, what happened to the stone after it was discovered, and then of course the race to decipher it across Europe that happened over the following 2 decades. And then as a result, what's happened since then in terms of kind of what we know the Rosetta Stone tells us about the ancient world in which it was created. So do get to see that exhibition, and there's an accompanying podcast on History Hit as well that you can get involved with. Classics for All, place close to my heart. As a trustee of Classics for All, they're holding a moot trial of Alexander the Great next Wednesday, the 26th of October. You can be there. It's going to be streamed live from the UK Supreme Court. Yes, this is really Alexander the Great on trial. You can watch online via YouTube, so do get involved in this. Patrick Gibbs, QC, for the defence. Philippe Sands, QC, counsel for the prosecution. Alexander the Great stands trial for war crimes at the UK Supreme Court. Absolutely brilliant. And if you're in the area of Cambridge, right now, finishing on Saturday, then Euripides' Cyclops and Aeschylus' Persians, the Cambridge Greek play on at the Cambridge Arts Theatre. So see if you can get involved in that. So much going on. Our time is almost at an end. Alexis is, of course, talking about Natalie Haynes' new book, Stone Blind, retelling of Medusa. Absolutely amazing stuff. Great book. And I believe, Alexis, we can finish. That's very well timed, Alexis, because we can finish on your question, which is asking about snakes in antiquity. Now, a number of you have asked about snakes at different points in time. Elizabeth Henriksen asked a little while ago, and we didn't get around to being able to answer your question, Elizabeth. I apologise. Why are jewellery in the ancient world often made of snakes? She hates snakes. And Alexis is pointing out, in Natalie Haynes' story, you've got obviously the scary snakes that are part of Medusa's head as a result of a curse. Hera sending snakes to kill baby Heracles. Lots of bad stories about snakes, but equally lots of good roles for snakes in the ancient world. Connected to Asclepius, healing cult. There's also, don't forget, the sacred snake, supposedly on the Athenian Acropolis. So kind of what's up with the snake thing? And indeed, snakes as jewelry were seen as a sort of something to ward off evil, apotropaic in many ways, right? They would ward off evil from happening for you. So there you go. Snakes, a really, really interesting reputation. They seem to constantly have this place really referencing the liminality between changing states, between good and evil, between health and disease. And there's something about the snake that is actually in some ways the guardian of the crossing between these different states. And so kind of snakes could be incredibly holy and religious pieces, key pieces of kind of worship and key pieces of kind of that policing that ritual between the human and the divine worlds, and particularly divine intervention in human worlds, as cool as well as being instruments of divine retribution against humans, and of course as part of that kind of mythical monstery world, kind of again sort of either part of retribution by the gods against humans, or about that sort of dividing line between what is human and what is more than human. So kind of I think we need to think about snakes as kind of guardians of the betwixt and the between, and very much markers of kind of when things are changing from one form to another, both to be worshipped and to be feared in equal measure. There we go. There's a quick reference for you on snakes. So shouldn't be kind of dissuaded in any means, shape or form. Piece of snake jewelry, I think, would go down extremely well. And there you go. Kind of, you can all go out and get your snake tattoos now. But again, if you're listening and you're under 18, please ask permission of an adult in your household before you do so. Our time is up. I'm so sorry. We haven't got a chance. Sarah, Scotty, to answer your questions. Steve, Real, either yours. Mark Cook, I intended to get to all of you. But kind of I will save you for the next time, along with all the other great questions that have come in. And when is that next time going to be? Well, sadly, due to things like trying to finish this book and other kind of commitments in lots of different places over the next couple of weeks, our next Q&A is going to have to wait until Thursday, the 24th of November. But 5 p.m. UK time, 24th of November, wherever you are in the world, do come and join us. Hopefully the outside world might be a little bit calmer by then, but if it's not, don't forget, we can always have this enjoyable half hour of peace and quiet delving into the ancient world. So wherever you are in the world, I hope that you stay well and that the next month treats you extremely well as we start to get just a tinsy bit excited, but perhaps about Christmas, or at least kind of about the nights drawing in and giving us all a good excuse to sit at home with a nice drink in our hands in one form or another. And I look forward to seeing you on the 24th of November. And in the meantime, do keep sending in your questions either direct to the Facebook page, or you can send them to michaelscottacademic@gmail.com. Keep sending in your questions. That's what we live for on these Q&As. Keep engaging in the community group page as well, exchanging your photos. And don't forget, if you do try any ancient remedies, send us your picture. If you do find the ancient Trojan horse in Yorkshire, send us a picture of it. And indeed, of any other great things that you're up to do with the ancient world over the next month or so, let us know, and we'll be good. It would be great to give them a shout out next time we meet. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, take care.